So on the topic sustainable construction materials, as the topic title itself says, that is a very vast subject to be discussed. Because, uh,
Ma'am, click the right arrow button, ma'am.
right arrow.
Right arrow button. Or down arrow, ma'am. Down arrow. Moving, ma'am. It's moving now.
As it is a very vast material, to discuss this, we need a lot of, because we cannot brief it out in 1.5 hours. So anyhow, I have tried to compromise the materials with few materials where I can just bring out the experimental data conducted in our college and outside also. So with the support of the experimental data, I'll be explaining the utility of these materials. So the construction industry has been, all of us know, is one of the most sectors growing day by day, and the population, global population and consumption is also increasing along with the construction. As the construction industry is growing, population consumption is also increasing. So demand for the materials definitely it will be higher. So the demand for building materials has been continuously rising. So the material consumption material as a construction material is now it is a second. It has occupied a second place after the water by volume. The statistics for concrete is 2.5 tons per annum. The global as per the global population per annum. Then concrete usage is 10 to 30 billion tons per annum. And then cement consumption is 5 billion tons in the world. And aggregate consumption is 30 billion tons per annum in the world. So by 2050, India alone is estimated that India alone requires 1,000 million tons of cement, which is a very huge requirement.
Ma'am, do you want me to share, ma'am? You tell me to.
Every time I have to tell you to operate the okay. Okay. The construction industry rely heavily on conventional material, that is cement, granite, sand. So high and increasing cost of these materials has greatly affected the development of shelter and other infrastructural facilities in the developing countries. This aspect arises the need for the use of cheaper and locally available materials to meet desired need. So enhance self-efficiency and lead to an overall reduction in construction cost for sustainable development. The emphasis on sustainability is bringing about major changes in the construction industry, particularly regarding the promotion of sustainable materials. So with emphasis to this, importance is given towards the use of waste materials arising from the industries and domestic sectors like fly ash, ground blast furnace slag, or fibers, or domestic sectors like incinerated ashes like rice husk ash or the bagasse ash, or many other types of ashes can also be utilized here like bamboo ash, like that. So I'll be discussing few of these materials also in the coming lectures. Next, definition of sustainability. Many of us have already discussed the definition of sustainability. So here also I am discussing a few of them. So sustainable development, what development that meets the needs of present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So it should not affect there should be some materials to be left for the future generations also. And manage economic growth in such a way as to do irreparable damage to environment. The sustainable construction, creating and operating a healthy built environment based on resource efficiency and ecological design. Coming over to the materials used throughout our consumer and industrial economy that can be produced in required volumes without depleting non-renewable resources and without disrupting the established steady-state equilibrium of the environment and key natural resource systems. Now, there the three pillars of sustainability. So, many of them have discussed this pillars of sustainability. The sustainability is dependent on these pillars, as environmental, economy, and society. This can also be said. This can also be discussed as 3P. That's planet, people, profit. Planet it comes to environment, people refers to society, profit refers to economy, and it can also be said in the 3 E's also. It is environment, equity, and economy. Now, environmental impact. So, cement manufacturing accounts for about 5% of carbon dioxide emission in the world. This attributes to 1/20th part of carbon dioxide emission of the world. So, increase in carbon dioxide leads to global warming and climatic change, which is the environmental effect which has to be addressed to. Then, economic impact. Construction provides livelihood to a large extent of the population. To a large extent of the population next to agriculture. Poor construction with the concrete can lead to high repair and rehabilitation cost. So, this will lead to economic impact because it is the construction gives employment to many people, and also when the construction is very poor, again for repair and rehabilitation we have to spend a lot on that. So we have to take care of both the things. So a social impact, material should be socially accepted as concrete is a long-term investment infrastructure or a house which will be permanent asset and should last more. Infrastructure or most which will be a permanent asset, which should last more than a lifetime. It is within the reach for most of the people. Quality of control is not assured for the user who has not tested, feels something could be wrong. So we have to educate the people about the material or the sustainable material which we use it, because when we invest on the building, it is a very long-term investment, and for most of the people it is within the reach. So we have to convince the people whenever the sustainable materials are used. It is very difficult for the people to be convinced. So this is also a social impact on the sustainable development. Sustainable matrix. Now this also can be put like this: economy, environment, society. Environment here depends on energy, carbon, materials, water, land, and whereas economy depends on affordability, life cost, and society here is the parameters are safety, involvement, health and weathering, health and well-being, aesthetics. Along with that, we also have a function requirements like service life, durability, serviceability, flexibility, adaptability, modular components, reusability, and recyclability are the other functional requirements which has to be seen to for the sustainable material. Now, sustainable construction materials. The list of sustainable construction materials that can be aimed at the concrete industry has increased noticeably. This will continue as the pressure increases on the construction industry to reduce its carbon footprint. So it is estimated that at present there are 10 to 20 billion tons of waste that can be potentially processed for use. Some of the sustainable alternative materials in concrete are like alternative materials to cement. We can use fly ash, rice ash, bug ash, bamboo ash, banana ash, like many of the ashes. Most of the agriculture waste ashes are being used in the material researches are going on for the alternate materials to cement. And metals to aggregate, we know that slag, iron ore tailings, and resin also an aggregate waste metal from the windmill based metal, which also can be used in the metals replacement for the aggregate. Then recycled aggregate, copper slag, waste glass aggregates, and waste plastic aggregates. Coffee seed as also is being used in on this also the research is being going on. Then fibers, steel fiber, glass fiber, synthetic fiber, polypropylene fiber, nylon fiber, plastic, areca, cord fiber, bamboo fiber, banana, sisal, jute fiber, hemp fiber, flax, etc. These are the fibers which we use it. These fibers will increase the flexural strength or the crack arresting in the concrete. Then alternative materials to aggregates. Now let us discuss some of the alternative materials to aggregates. Now for this, we have the preparation of a mineral planning. We have to have a mineral planning policy in line with the advanced countries. So mineral planning is essential for a judicial use of natural resources. The government of UK, after consultation with industry and other interested bodies, published the aim for aggregate industry as a mineral planning guide. 6. The guide outlines the general policy regarding guidance to mineral planning authorities and operators on how to ensure a steady and adequate supply of aggregates, both coarse and fine, keeping in mind environmental and social economical considerations. The objective of sustained development of mineral planning for England are set as follows. So to conserve minerals as far as possible, whilst ensuring an adequate supply to meet the needs of society for minerals, to minimize production of waste and to encourage efficient use of metals, including appropriate use of high quality metals and recycling of waste, to encourage sensitive working practices during mineral extraction, and to preserve or enhance the overall quality of the environment once extraction is ceased. Then to protect areas of a designated landscape or nature conservation from development, other than in exceptional circumstances where it has been demonstrated the development is in public interest. Now this is now let us start with the aggregate replacement for river sand. So now all of us know this is the river bed which is being damaged due to the extraction of the sand from the river beds. The extent of destruction of the riverbed is so high that it has changed the course of the river also, and it has also damaged the infrastructure or the riverbed along the, and it's also affected the natural elements like trees, everything. So this is the affected area or the damaged area of the riverbanks due to the extraction of the riverbed. So now alternative to river sand. As there is a huge demand for the sand in construction, the river sand resources are depleting. So the illegal mining of natural resources is creating major problem. And environmentalists are protesting against mining of these natural resources, not only in India, but all over the world. The regulating authorities, such as the National Green Tribunal, the Tribunal, Ministry of Environment and Forest, the State Environment Impact Assessment Authority, and the pollution control boards, etc., restraining sand mining without any license or permit or environmental clearance from the riverbeds across the country. Now, river sand substitutes. There are many river sands which can materials which can be substituted by river sand. Processed corridors, processed rock fines, offshore sand, dune sand, wash soil, fly ash, iron ore tailings slag, sand, copper slag, construction demolition, powdered glass, aluminum, sawmill waste. Then manufactured sand. Comparison between river sand. Now let us start with the different sand. The manufactured sand. Now all of us are using M sand. So that is a manufactured sand. So this, so let us just see the comparison between the river sand, manufactured sand, crushed rock fines, and washed crushed rock fines. So the manufactured sand is the one which is produced in the crusher, the controlled inspections. But the crushed rock fines are the rock which is being crushed, and washed crushed rock fines are the crushed rock fines is again washed by water so that the fines will be removed and it will be better than the crushed rock fines, and it is nearing to the manufactured sand, but it is not as good as manufactured sand. So manufactured sand is produced by feeding stones of varying sizes into vertical shaft impact. The machine is shown here. So there are many other types of machine. This is a vertical shaft, which the rocks are fed from the top, and then it is crushed. So the VSI crusher, by means of its unique design and action, produces well-shaped fine aggregate particles. So the process of attrition also enables the removal of surface roughness of the fine aggregates particles to a good extent. In VSI crushers in quarry also used to convert entire coarse aggregates into fine aggregates. So here this VSI crusher, we can get either the coarse aggregate or the fine aggregate. So we can also get the fine aggregate by feeding the coarse aggregate. The crusher. Then with an inherent process of screening, manufactured sand plants cause better grading of fine aggregates for better particle size distribution. Also, some of the plants possesses air filter system or washing facility through which all the 7% of micron below 75 micron is washed off, and is controlled below 3% by weight. So the 75 micron fines is less than 3% by weight. So the washing facility provides another benefit of keeping the manufactured sand in wet or partially wet condition. So this will help to the absorption rate of manufactured sand during concrete. Management in turn will contribute to the better workability and better workability retention. So this by washing this sand, this water retention is also being increased. So I'll talk about the water retentivity in the next slides. Now this is the finest sieve analysis distribution of the final aggregate distribution. This is the first one shows for the river sand. So this is from the maximum to for the zone 2 it is shown. So this is the maximum here. Okay, so now this is the sieve aggregate size distribution percentage of passing for the river sand. The first figure shows for river sand, and the second is the manufactured sand. So the manufactured sand lies between these two zone 2 of the river sand which we have. So the distribution is very uniform, and here the fines and the higher large size aggregates are balanced. But when we come to the crusher dust sample, here we can see that the fines here, finer materials are higher than the zone 2 sand, and because of this the strength of the concrete reduces, because the larger size aggregates are lesser than the higher size finer size aggregates. So the crushed washed rock dust, so by washing this, the finer aggregates can be lessened compared to the crushed rock dust. See the curve. This is the curve. So the finer percent of finer aggregates is more here. By washing it, you can remove the finer aggregates to a certain extent. Now, wet sieving test to find percentage of microfines. Now, this is the wet sieving analysis. So this is found that for a river sand sample, the material lesser than 75 micron is 2.5%, and for manufactured sand it is 2%. So it is lesser than the river sand. Then the crushed rock dust, it is 10.4%. Then washing the crushed rock dust, we are getting it as 2%, the materials. According to the codal provision, it should be less than 2%. Okay. So here, this is the soundness test sample. This is soundness test. So when the sample is reacted with sodium sulfate or magnesium sulfate, the aggregate value should not exceed 10%. The exit. So here for river sand, it is 5.79 and 7.63, 6.764. And then for manufactured sand, it is 1.6 and 2. It is lesser than the river sand. So the And the crusher dust or the crushed rock dust fines has 7.74 and 7.96 because the dust contains more of silt and it is not taken care of. So the manufactured sand has the least effect due to sodium sulfate magnesium sulfate. So it is within the 10%. So all these rocks are fines are within 10% aggregate value, but the better quality is the manufactured sand, which has the least. Now, water absorption. Now, river sand. River water absorption test. River sand is observed that it is 1.75% water absorption. Manufactured sand is 1.96%, and crushed raw dust from crushed dust is 3.86. And washed crushed rock is from 3.43%. This is actually, these metals are obtained from Karur. All these materials, river sand and manufactured sand, crushed dust, everything is taken from the Karur area. So this is the water absorption test. So actually, according to the IS code limit, it is like should be less than 2%, whereas this water absorption here is for crushed dust and the wash crushed dust would make greater than 2%. Now coming over to the expansion here, this is the ASR reaction, that is time of immersion in sodium hydroxide. When it is immersed in sodium hydroxide, this is the expansion limit of the river sand and the manufactured sand. So we saw here, due to the sodium sulfate, this 5.7 and 7.64, and here it is 1.6 and 2. So here, so immersion in sodium hydroxide, the river sand shows a higher expansion, whereas the manufactured sand shows the least expansion. If aggregates contain reactive silica, it can react with alkali in cement during the process of hydration and can result in formation of alkali silica gel. This gel imbibes water from concrete and expands. So the expansion causes disruption in concrete and makes it to disintegrate or crack. So next is the accelerator. This is tested. This test we also call it a Dunning by accelerated mortar bar test, which we call it as an ASR test. Is one of the test methods where according to the codal provision. So this should be less than 0.1%, then the aggregate is considered non-reactive. So here we can see that all these, both the tests here is less than 0.1%. So though it is less than 0.1%, the reaction on the M sand is less than the river sand. Now this is the comparison on workability and strength here. So this is river sand, M sand, and this is crushed rock dust powder, and this is washed crushed rock. So we see here, this is for the initial slump, and then this is for this is comparison on workability and strength. So the white bar graph shows the workability, and the black one shows the strength. So for a river sand, the workability is 100 and the strength is 49, whereas for M sand the workability is higher, 170 and 53. This strength is also higher, 53. Crushed rock dust powder it is 75, the workability is higher, but it is lesser than the sand because of the finer materials, presence of the finer materials in crushed rock dust, and even washed crushed rock as lessen the finer materials were washing, so the workability is higher and the strength is almost same as the crushed dust. So from this graph also we can see that the workability and the strength is more in M sand because of the controlled extraction of the aggregate. So in the case of other two crushed rock washed, okay. Though there is a possibility of better bonding due to so in case of the other two crushed stone sand, namely crushed dust or washed crushed dust, though there is a possible better bonding due to surface roughness, the other factors, namely increased surface area, pore gradation, and presence of microfines would have made binder cement content insufficient to match the strength level of the standard mix with 100% of manufactured sand. So because of that, the strength is lesser than the manufactured sand. Then properties of M sand and river sand. So your properties, if you observe the M sand, core sand, presence of core sand like 4.75 to 2 mm, we have 28.1 percentage by weight, whereas river sand has 6.6, and medium sand from 2 to 4.425, it is 44.8%, and here it is 73.6, it is higher. And finer sand here it is 27.1, and here it is 19.8. Specific gravity here 2.63, 2.6 is almost same. Bulk density is 15.1 and 14.5. pH value 10.1 and 8.66. Then chemical composition, M sand contains all these silica, aluminum, calcium, magnesium, sodium, etc. And then course, this is the how the sand looks, the texture of the sand. If you take the M sand and the river sand, it is almost same. And then medium sand is also the same, but in medium sand, the percentage of finer is more, which we have observed here, 73.6. So that is this is the river sand. And in fine sand, the M sand is finer than the river sand. So this is the texture of the different sands. And now coming over to the grain size distribution of the both the M sand, river sand, both put together, we can just see here. This is the zones, and this is the river sand and M sand. So both lie within the zone 2, but the distribution of fiber is better in M sand compared to the river sand. And here compressive stress here, it is for M sand, this is stress versus strain graph. So this is for M sand and this is for river sand. So here the river sand, M sand has lesser strain, and lesser strain and high strength. And strength it is similar to a high strength concrete. Since the modulus of elasticity masonry in M sand is more than that of double that of modulus of masonry with river sand. So when we find the modulus of masonry with M sand compared with the river sand, modulus of masonry with M sand is double that of the river. So the increase in modulus can be attributed better bond between the mortar and the brick. Then this is the flow percentage. Now here when we see the percentage of flow in M sand, this is M sand and this is the river sand, and here this is for 1:6 mortar ratio, and this is for 1:4 mortar ratio. So the water cement ratio is for a lesser water cement ratio, the flow is higher. Here for the higher water cement ratio, the flow is not as high as this M sand. So there's a lot of difference between this percentage for M sand and river sand. So M sand, the lesser water cement ratio, the flow percentage is more. Now, what is water retentivity? You are speaking about water retentivity. Water retentivity can be defined as the ability of the mortar to retain water against the suction of the brick or block. Mortar as cementitious materials, thus initially it requires certain amount of water for the hydration process and development of strength. If the water loss from the mortar is large, this leads to the low water cement ratio in the mortar and improper hydration of the fresh mortar, thereby affecting the mortar characteristics and the bond development. So we need to have a certain water to be retained in the mortar to have a proper hydration in the fresh mortar. So otherwise the mortar gets dried and the strength reduces. So water retentive values for 1:6 cement mortar using river sand and M sand are 27.3% and 28.5%. So it is 27.3% for this, and this is 28.5% water retentivity in M sand and river sand. For 1:4 mortar, it is observed that it is 25.6% for M sand and 35.6% for river sand. Thus, water retentivity of mortar improves the workability of the M sand, and in turn increases the strength and bond development. Then compressive strength mortars. Now, so this is a mortars strength on mortars which we have studied. For 1:6 and 1:4, the percentage flow here is 85 and 100, and here it is 85% 100 for 1:4 also. The river sand, when you see the river sand, the water cement ratio for 85% flow, the water cement ratio, river sand, the water cement ratio is 1.72, whereas for M sand it is 1.3, and for 100% also is 1.7 and 1.3. But from this we can see that the water cement ratio rim sand is lesser than the river sand. The compressive strength, when we observe here, for a river sand, for 28 days is showing 4.03, whereas for rim sand it is 8.53. So, and say for even for 1:4, also 6.04 and 15.59 for 100% water flow, where the water cement ratio is more. For lesser water cement ratio, it is showing a higher strength of 15.96 and 80.53 compared to 4.03 and 7.35 of the river sand. Now, compressive strength. So this is nearly 30% increase in masonry strength due to the use of mortar with M sand was observed. Now let us go to the filtered sand. Now this is the filtered sand is the one where the topsoil of the earth, usually they extract the topsoil of the earth and then they wash it, because the earth soil consists of major amount like 50 to 60% of sand is present in the soil. Along with that, it has a clay and silt content. So this clay and this silt content has to be washed off. So they extract the soil like this and then they wash it with the water and then retain it. So the clay and silt will settle and so you can extract the sand. So this by washing the silt and clay content will be washed off, and then some amount of clay will be retained. So major amount of the sand can be extracted. So the use of filtered sand, because now, okay, I'll just tell you. So filtered sand construction buildings increase in restrictions on river sand. So the methods of adaptive filter sand are very crude. It is extracted by manual washing the soil in pits and small ponds to remove the silt. So because the natural soil contains 40 to 50% sand. In some cases, it is 60% also. So the procedure is often criticized that they destroy topsoils, leaving ugly pitches. But by proper mechanisms, it can be extracting the topsoil can be avoided by using the. So because not only the topsoil consists of this good sand, but subsoil below this topsoil has more of sand proportion. So the manufactured, because this is being used because the manufactured sand only cannot be used because manufactured sand is extracted from the aggregate which is all natural from the natural stone. So when the natural stones get depleted, then we have to go for the other source. So this is the sand, soil sand extracted from the soil can be used. Now, an additional demand for manufacturing definitely deplete natural stone resources faster, and search for other alternatives becomes essential for long-term sustainability of building. So by extracting only the topsoil, it will affect the farmlands. So this can be done by this can be used when when we dig up ponds for water harvesting, or canal digging, or digging for foundations, high-rise buildings. So where we do that, so we extract the soil. That soil can be used for the extraction of the sand instead of digging the topsoil. Again, tank beds and dams store a huge quantity of silt, which also contains some. So here also the tank beds and dams also has a huge quantity of silt, which also contains some amount of sand. So that also can be desilted and then can be used. Then especially the clay and silt content should not be more than 1% by weight. Material finer than 75 micron should not be more than 3% by weight. So the total deleterious material for uncrushed fine aggregates should be less than 5%. Okay, that is. The higher the percentage of clay and silt content in sand, the higher percentage the increment of sand. So the requirement of sand will be higher with the higher increase, presence of sand and clay and silt content in the sand. So the engineers at site report that the clay and silt content is more in filtered sands. One must be very careful before using the filtered sands. So for this, there is a research result presented here. This is a research done by Professor K.S. Chandrasekhar from IAC. So this is, they have worked out on the filter sand with a cement mortar, porous mortar. So here they have taken 1:6 filter sand, and this filter sand contains 5% below 75 micron is less than 5%. So, and another 4% was, it was 7.55% in one sample, they found it. But anyhow, the fines present lesser than 75 micron size is less than 5%. So, so that is, they tested for 7-day and 28-day compressive strength, and then they found that it is higher. It reached 4 megapascal. So this is filter sand 1, 2, 3, and reverse sand. So the water cement ratio here, it is 2.1, 0.9, 1.7. See, this water cement ratio is higher in for filter sands because the presence of the silt. So 7-day strength, when they have checked, it is 7.32 for filters 1, 5, 8, 4.65, 8.27, 6.48. So it is higher than the reverse sand itself because the presence of the silt content in this is less than 5 microns. This is another study where here in this study, we have seen that the presence of fines lesser than 75 micron is less than 5%. That is why we are getting the compressive strength of the mortar is more. But we have conducted another research by student Dhruva. This is were tested on mortar and concrete. So here we have taken that in this test, actually the presence of 75 micron size, lesser than 75 micron size particles are more than 5%. So see the effect of the concrete. Let us see the effect here. So this is the fineness modulus, which is 2.63. And is the distribution of the aggregates. And test results of this one. So we have taken here as 100% sand and 0% fine filtered sand, and it is being replaced. 80% sand, 20% filtered sand, 60 sand and 40 filtered sand, 40 like this. And lastly, it is 0% sand and 100% filtered sand. For all this, the specific gravity is found out, and it is found that for 100% is 2.65. And as you replace the sand with the fine aggregate, the specific gravity reduces, and even the fineness modulus. And but all these lies in the zone 2. Now this is the hydrometer test, which is being done to find out the presence of the finer particles in the sand. So this is done with the help of Dr. Krishna sir from the Department of Civil Engineering, Bangalore University. So he helped us to do this, and we have got this percentage of finer materials here. So from this, we observe that the filtered sand contains finer materials is greater than 17%, whereas the limit as per IS 83 is 3%, and for natural sand it is 1.02%. We have got it, and this filtered sand is 17%, which is higher than the 3% limit. So this is so the compressive strength for a mortar. So 1:6 mortar test is being tested here, and it is found that the normal sand, the compressive strength was 12.5. And with the addition of this filter sand 20, 40, 60, 80, the compressive strength reduced, and only for filter sand of 100%, the compressive strength of the mortar was 9.1. Then compressive strength for a concrete, when we tested for M20, we found that for the same thing, normal concrete, we found it as 28.58 for 28 days strength. And then it reduced when we used filters, and for 100% it was 18.21. For 20% it was 27.8. 40 it was 20.7.61. This indicates that the finer materials in the filtered sand will affect the strength. Now the pond ash. Now pond ash is the byproduct of thermal power plants, which is considered as a waste material, and its disposal is a major problem for environment point of view, and also it requires a lot of disposal area. There are three types of ash produced by thermal power plants. That is fly ash, bottom ash, and pond ash. The ash is collected by mechanical and electrostatic precipitants from the flue gases of power plant. Bottom ash is collected from the bottom of the boilers. When these two types of ash are mixed together, are transported in the form of slurry and stored in the lagoons, which we call it as a pond ash. Using the pond ash or the replacement for the aggregates here, it is reported that only up to 40% of the pond ash replacement of the sand can be done by the pond ash. So only 40% pond ash can be replaced in the sand. So this has been already discussed by the other teachers, previous teachers. So I'm not going to discuss more here. Now coming over to the offshore sand and sea sand. Now, like in coastal area, where they have a large coastal areas, there the offshore sand and sea sand extraction and using of that is in practice. So this is how they extract it. So by using this, they suck the sand from the sea offshore and sand, and then they pile it up. So this is how they do it. They suck the sand, and then they pile it up, and they allow it for washing, or they wash it if they have very ample of water. So if they have more water, you can wash it and remove the chloride ions in the sand, which otherwise the presence of chloride ions increases the corrosion in steel. So it has a very high content shale and is finer than the river sand. So in currently, generally, pore sand is most suitable. Sorry, in concrete, generally, pore sand is more suitable, but the river sea sand has more of finer particles. Due to shortage of sand in coastal areas, properly washed and clean sea sand can be used for making concrete if ample of water is available to treat washed sand, sea sand to lower chloride content. Fly ash in desired proportion. See here, this percent of chloride content can also be reduced by adding the fly ash desired proportions to so that we can balance the chloride ions. This in turn will reduce the corrosion in steel. Then treating the sea sand is very costly and it requires large area to. So this is one of the saying of Tan Chi Ming, who is head of the Department of Institute of Vocational Educational. He says that treating sand is very costly and it requires a large area to soak it in fresh water. Then a professional of Hong Kong says that no developer here would risk using sea sand if it is not treated well. The concrete will peel off the building after 10 years. So that is why the sea sand should be washed properly before it is used. Then the Sri Lanka Land Reclamation Development Corporation Association, the Civil Engineering Department of the University of Morocco, and the National Building Research Organization have carried out some studies and recommended sea sand as a sustainable alternative to river sand. The studies show that the salinity level in the sea sand extracted from the offshore sea is very much less than the sand at the beach. The sand has been pumped from a distance of about 10 kilometers. So the offshore sea will be extracted where it is 10 kilometers from the beach. So this contains lesser salinity level compared to the sand at the beach. And here, this sand will be stockpiled and left. It is left for a period of nearly 8 years for the monsoonal rains. And due to this, they claim that the salinity has been washed away. So by leaving it, piling the stockpiles and allowing it to expose to the monsoonal rains, so this they say that the salinity is lost in the sand, so which it can be used. So countries like United Netherlands, Scilly Islands, Singapore, Japan, and Korea are using sea sand for construction. Before recommending the sea sand and alternative sand as an alternate, sand sample must be studied in the laboratory to determine the components and finest models of sea sand grains, unit volume of sea sand, unit volume of sand, that is how much sand is present, content of mica in the sand, content of dust, mud, clay, volume of foam, sea salt in the sand, and the content of shale in sea sand. Generally, the strength of cement concrete using sea sand is less than traditional cement concrete, up to 10%, they say. But especially in countries with large coastal resources, limited base marine, constitute up to 25% total production of natural aggregates. So they're using 25% of the total production of natural aggregates. In Japan and Britain, which produce 2/3 of the world's marine aggregates, offshore sand and gravel mining have already become a $200 billion industry. So this is with respect to the soil sand, offshore sea sand. Now let us go to the soil sand. What is the soil sand? So this actually, I said the sand which is been that is similar to filtered sand, but it's not filtered sand. Soil sand is the one which you extract the sand which is present in the soil. Directly the soil is used in the cement, water, or concrete by checking the quantity of clay and reducing the the percentage of clay by adding the additional sand to it and reducing the percentage of clay in the soil. And also we can increase this strength by adding the stabilizers like cement or lime for a certain percentage, and then increase the strength of this sand. So this is known as soil sand. So this work is being done in Center of Astra in Indian Institute of Science since 1985. They are using this. Using the soil sand for their research. They're working on this. So Venkatam Reddy and Gupta, this is professor researchers who have worked on the red soil containing 16% clay and about 60% sand. So they have taken a red soil which contains 16% clay and 60% sand as partial replacement to sand in cement mortars with various proportions. The compressive strength of the various mortars was determined using 50 mm cubical specimens. A mortar with 8% clay is obtained with, so this is so now they have taken a red soil which contains 16% clay and 60% sand. For this, they have reduced that clay to 8% from 16% by adding an extra, by removing the clay content from the soil by adding the sand, okay, quantity of sand. So they 8%, they have reduced the clay content from 60% to 8% clay by adding the additional sand. So this is one sand they have taken. The other one is specimen. The other one is 16% clay itself is being used, where they have not added any natural soil to it. The other one is they have 24% clay. To make 24% clay present in the sand, they have to remove part of the sand from the soil. So then only they can have 24% clay in the soil. So these are the three specimens they have taken with different percentage of clay. So for this, they have tested the mortar flow. These are, they have tested for the cement mortar test. By having the mortar flow as 100%, so the compressive strength for 8% clay and 10% and 15%, 8% clay they have taken, and again they have stabilized this, modified with the 10% and 15% cement. So they have added 10%, 15% cement to that, and then that is being used here. So again, when the clay contains 16% cement, 16% cement proportion, what is 15% is needed. So when you have a 16% clay, you have to add a 15% cement to get a very good strength. So this is the mortar they have taken 1:6 cement mortar, where they have achieved it as 5.4 megapascal after 28 days. So all the mortars here showed good water retentivity because of the presence of the finer particles and clay content. It also mentioned here that all these mortars generally gain strength between 28 days and more than 28 days. So you have to wait for more than 28 days to achieve a greater strength. So for 28 days, they have taken it, they have got it 2.7 megapascal, and for after 60 days, they have achieved it as 3 megapascals. And this is the table which is present for this different clay content and different cement. So for 8%, 16%, 24% clay present in the soil with the cement, additional cement of 10% and again 15%, having the percentage of flow percentage should be 100. So water cement ratio, see the amount of water cement ratio here. For 8% clay is 2.41, 16% 3.25, 24% is 4.6. So this for the 10% clay. Same way for 15% clay, the water cement ratio is reduced. But however, with the increase in clay content, the water cement ratio is increased here. So the compressive strength here for 8%, it is 2.7, 16% clay, 1.93, 1.26. So the increase in clay content, the compressive strength is reducing. For a 15% cement, with increase in cement, the compressive strength is increasing. Okay, so for 10% cement, it is lesser than the 15% cement presence of cement. So then water retentivity here. So for 88% is showing 88, 90, 90. So which also says that the higher the presence of clay, water retentivity will be more. And this is the drying shrinkage. Okay, this is the dry. So with cement mortar is 1:6. If you have, the drying shrinkage is less. But with 8% clay and 50% cement, here this is both are 15% cement only. The clay content is very. This is for 8% clay and this is for 16%. So with increase in the clay content, the drying shrinkage is also increased. So we can see this. So this is the drying shrinkage. Now tensile bond strength of soil cement block. So this is, they have also tested the tensile bond strength for soil cement block for the mortars. So this is for cement of 6, 8, 12. Strength is achieved. The soil cement block with 6%, it was in 12% cement. Strength is 3.13, 5.63, 7.19. This is cement, the soil cement block. Then tensile bond between the mortars bond strength. You see it for having 1:6 cement mortar. We have found that it is 0.09 to 0.16 and 0.18. Then here it is cement soil mortar with 16% clay and 10% cement is 0.11, 0.13, 0.14. Cement soil with 10% clay and 15% cement is 0.14. So this is the strength has increased, tensile strength increases on the presence of cement and the lesser the clay content. So Careflow soil sand mixes. This is work done by the other researcher Mahesh Gowda. So here it is, the sand content is 80, 80, 100. Silt is varied, 20, 15, 20, 10, 5, 0. Clay content is also varied here. It is 0%, 5, 10, 15, 20. And water cement ratio is this. So we have already discussed with the water. So water cement ratio increases the presence of clay. Then for a 28-day compressive strength, it is found that the presence 0% of clay shows 8.96 here, and with the presence of clay, it has been reduced. Okay, it is 7.4 to 6.4.11, and here this water retention value also is being increased with the presence of clay. So this is the soil sand reaction. So the result shows that mortars with silt and clay addition give good strength when clay is between 5 to 15%. Cement sand mortar has adequate strength but poor water retentivity. Cement sand mortar, this is it's not soil. It is cement sand mortar, has poor retentivity. The water goes up when clay is added to the mix. Clay content of 10 to 15% is ideal from the point of view of strength as well as water retentivity. These results again indicate the superiority of cement soil sand mortars when compared with cement sand mortars. The use of such mortars in the past 2 decades, several buildings has not thrown up any visible problems. Now coming over the iron ore tailings as a partial replacement to sand in mortar and concrete. So this is the extraction of the iron ore from the iron factory, which we have here. So factories processing iron ore generally leave behind large quantities of tailings. This is being disposed in landfills, quarries, ponds, sea as waste. So the Kudremukh Iron Company has a storage of 200 million tons of iron ore tailings. This is collected in Lakya Dam in Chikmagalur district, so which causes some serious environmental problems. So one way to discard this IoT is to use them in the building industry, where they are recycled and reused for renewable and sustainable product development. The figure shows that the iron ore tailing samples have an average silt clay size fraction of about 25%. These tailings are inert, can be used as a partial replacement. These tailings are inert, so here, an average silt plus clay size fraction of about 25% it consists of. Then the workable compression ought to, okay, so that we will be checking here. So the sand now, okay. So now for a test here, they have taken the Kudremukh iron ore tailings or mixed with sand in various proportion tested for a flow characteristics. So this water binder ratio is this iron ore tailings for water binder ratio of 1:1:6. Cement they have taken, cement lime mortar. So sand replacement of 25% 50% shows a satisfactory flow, and the composition for cement lime varies determined for a flow value of 85%. And it's seen that the strength of mortar with 25 to 50% sand replacement is more than the strength of the mortar with only sand. These are current tailings up to 50% sand is a good alternative to the use of sand alone. So that can be seen over here in this figure. This is the grain size distribution. This figure shows you the iron ore tailings, that is the triangle shapes here, and then the round one shows for the reverse side. See this, the strain, the fine iron size distribution is the finer materials are more in the tailings compared to the riverside. So that is why the strength sometimes it reduces, okay, because of the presence of the smaller particles. So here this is a sand replaced with IOT. This is the flow percent of this. So water binder ratio is 0.91 and 1.1. So here when the water binder ratio is 0.9, the flow percentage is less for a different replacement level. And with the water binder ratio increases, the flow percentage also increases. So, and this is the sand replaced with IOT. So it is seen here the compressive strength. This is a graph for a compressive strength. So for 0, 25, 50, 75, and 100 replacement of the IOTs is seen here that the for a 25% replacement of IOT shows the maximum increase, but up to 50% there is no increase in the strength. Now this is an iron and tailings as a partial replacement of fine aggregates in concrete. This is the work done by one of this, so I have not mentioned the name here. So much to research going on in the department. This year the concrete mixes are replaced by sand, that is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%, retaining a water cement ratio of 0.32% to achieve a high strength cement here. So sieve analysis was done, and then workability of concrete was higher. On all of the data were considered greater than the conventional concrete up to 40%. So concrete containing IOT was tested. This is the test report of the IOT used for the test. Here, this IOT contains silicious powder for 34.65, the aluminium 28.65, iron 0.12, calcium 28.43, calcium oxide, magnesium 5.7, sodium 0.44, and potassium oxide 0.249. So this is loss on ignition 0.9, and loss on drying we have it as 0.092. So this is the gradation curve here. This curve here shows for M sand. This is for M sand, and this is for the IOT. So IOT has finer particles, which I already showed in the previous slide also. So see, this is the gradation curve which we have taken for our research. So this is the slump which we have found out. So the conventional concrete for 10% IOT replacement, 20%, 30, 40, 50% IOT replacement, the workability increases with the presence of the IOT. So this is the compressive strength which we have seen this. This is for 7, 28, and 56 days for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%. The compressive strength for compared to conventional concrete, it is same as up to 20%, and at 30%, 40%, up to 40, 30 and 40, it shows an increase in the strength, and for greater 50, it is showing decrease. Even the split tensile strength shows the same variation, similar variation to the compressive strength. And this is a durability test. Where weight loss when immersed in sulfuric acid, it is found that for 56 days test it has been done. This is 4.82% weight loss is being seen when immersed in sulfuric acid. When immersed in sulfate, magnesium sulfate, it is the weight loss is 1.95 for the different percentage of IOTs. So for the maximum for 50% replacement is 4.8. For 40, it is 4.68. Up to 30%, the weight loss is very less. So here also it is the same thing. Follows for 50%, the maximum loss is 1.95. So water absorption test. So water absorbed here for conventional concrete is 0.63, and for the 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%, the water absorption is more. So the water reactivity is more in the presence of IOT. So this is the same explanation explained here. And then this is a granulated steel slag. So this steel slag is the one which we have taken from the researcher Prasad. This is the this is where iron ore, coal, lime are used to make the iron making. During the iron making, the slag is being produced. This is by, we call it as a blast furnace line. And then after that, the iron goes to the steel making. While steel making, there will be a waste product which is produced, which is called as steel slag. So this steel slag is also used as an alternative to reverse sand. The steel production has increased, and consequently, the higher the volumes of byproducts and the residues generated, which are driven to the reuse of these materials. So increase of slags recovery and use in different fields of application like cements, making construction, and fertilizers help in preserving natural resources. Slags are generated at two different stages of steel production: iron making, blast slags. Okay, that is so with an average of this amount, that is how much is this? 1,50,200 kg of slag generated per ton of steel produced. The steel slag also it is also called as LD slag also, and it contains calcium oxide, silica, calcium, and free calcium oxide, and magnesium. These are the reactive minerals present in that. So unlike blast furnace slag, steel slag also shows volumetric instability, mainly due to the presence of free magnesium oxide and lime. So because of these two presence, there is a increase in the volume. So in the presence of water, these compounds hydrate expansively. The swelling nature of steel slag is determinant to almost all civil engineering applications. Hence, the main purpose of treating slag is to decrease the volume instability, because we have to reduce the magnesium oxide and lime oxide is the main criteria. Techniques used to minimize this undesirable volumetric instability of slag include using additives, steam treatment, and aging. The terms aging or weathering of steel slag refer to the open air stock piling of steel slag to provide adequate exposure to moisture. So this aging is another treatment which we expose the steel slag in the moisture, and then this reduces this content for the volumetric expansion. So it is a very slow process and not feasible for large integrated steel units. So JSW, Jindal Steel Works Steel, has developed another method of reducing this. So they are subjected to granulation through an innovative quenching technology they use. They do this. So this technology separates the metal and slag in a closed system and also washes out free lime and magnesium oxide. So here, due to sudden quenching of the molten slag, differential contrast. The quenching is sudden cooling of the molten slag. Differential contraction metal and slag occurs and results in good separation of metal and slag, because that will have both will have a different contraction capacity. So because of that, metal and slag can be differentiated. Process can be called as accelerated aging process also. This is called, so which reduces the unwanted free lime content. So removal of free lime and the magnesium oxide also confirms its volumetric stability. Then granulated slag particles are hard and have plain surface texture. So particles are very strong anti-weathering because it is being quenched, so it becomes very hard, and anti-weathering and anti-wearing with reduced free lime, reduced ferrous oxide, and negligible metallic iron. So due to similarity to river sand, this is seen as a potential. So by using the technique of quenching technology, so we can achieve a very good steel slag. So due to similarity to river sand, this is seen as potential material replacing sand in construction. However, to meet the required specified final detail, so it has to be characterized and laboratory tested. So this is the slags of different sizes we have here. So this is 0.5 mm, 0.5 to 2 mm, 2 to 4 mm, 4.6 mm. So while pinching, you have this granulated slag also produced with different sizes. And this is the sieve analysis done. So for 10 mm, 100, 4.7, 100, 2.36, 90, 4.45, 600 micron 23, 310 and 3. This is the slag which is being used in the test. So this is the specific gravities, physical characteristics. This is specific gravity 0.659, water absorption 0.8, silt 1.5, and the clay content is nil. And the LBD, that is loose bulk density, when they have tested, is 1.88, and compact bulk density when they have tested was 2.07. Now here they have replaced this steel slag with different percentages, 0, 25, 50, 75, and 100. And it is seen that here the strength here for 0% is 35.2, but with presence of 25, 50, 75, and 100 iron or there's a steel slag, it shows an increase in compressive strength. So granulated steel slag is an ideal example to convert a waste into a useful product which can help in conserving the river sand. So it can be replaced up to, they show it is up to 75%. So that depends on the presence of the finer, there is a magnesium oxide and calcium oxide, and how fine the material, how the coarser the materials are. So by removing that, you can increase this strength you can see the increase in the strength in the compressed system. Next is copper slag. Copper slag is the byproduct of the manufacture of copper. This slag is currently being used for many purposes ranging from 100 to this thing. This application, it has only about 15% to 20% of the copper slag generated. The remaining material is dumped as a waste. So alternate use of it as a partial or complete substitute for iron has been attempted. Presently, a copper slag is mainly available as Sterilite Industries, Birya Copper, the Dahej, and Hindustan Copper Jharkhand is available there. So there's a stock of 8 million tons, about 6,000 tons is getting added every day. So there's 8 million tons of copper slag, which we can use it for the alternate for sand. So use of copper slag as fine aggregate in concrete as worked by Sanjay Bahadur. He says that he has found it for compression and split tensiles test. Here also they say that up to 40% of the copper slag can be replaced. So this is the results of the physical, the chemical properties of the slag. So ferric oxide is 55 to 60%, and Fe3O4 it is less than 10%. Silica 27-33, calcium also 1 to 3.5%, sulfur 0.1.5, copper less than 1%, aluminum oxide it is 3%. So here they have done for different coppers with different percentages. So this is, let me just take only the first specimen here and then show it to you, then the rest missing. So control specimen is 100% sand, and the second one they have taken 5% copper slag and 75% sand. Then the 50% copper slag and 50% sand, 75% copper slag and 25% sand and 100% copper slag. So let me just only discuss this. So here we see that the slump is 25, but with the addition of copper sulfate, the copper slag, the workability has increased from 85, 75, 60, 40. Maybe I don't know why it is reduced here. So everywhere with the only 100% slag, the workability is reduced, but with the addition of sand, it shows an increase in the workability. So the strength here is seen here for control concrete. It is 44, but with the addition of copper slag, it is increasing 47, 46, 50, and there's only 100% copper slag, it is 52. So next is, so copper slag here. Durability test they have done on the copper slag and seen that the chloride diffusion test as per STM C1202 shows copper slag mortar results are similar to sand. So this can be recommended for the use of the sand. So now construction demolition waste as fine aggregates. Now this is the C&D waste, what we usually see is in process now. So recycling and reuse of waste such as building, rubble, concrete lumps, generate construction and demolition sites from part of a wider complex issue primarily relate to improving supplies of construction material and solving problems of disposal of waste construction materials. So now this is the production of the demolition waste from different countries is given here. So Belgium, France, Great, European, Spain. So it is 70 million tons, France 24, million 30, European 18, Spain and 38. The usage here, they are using only 80% in Belgium, France 15%, Great Britain 45%, and European Union 28%, and Spain 10%. So most of this, the aggregate concrete, these are used for roads, embankments, fills like this. And in India, we are using 14.7 tons of this waste. So India is we are getting about 12 to 14.7 million tons per annum. Then the Central Control of Pollution Control Board estimates current quantum solid waste generation in India to 48 million tons, out of which 12 to 14.7 million tons is from the construction industry. Then the highest contribution to waste generation is from demolition waste of building, which yields 500 and 300 to 300 kg per square meter of waste for pakka and semi-pakka buildings. For As for Paka houses, it is 500 kg per square meter, and for semi-Paka houses, 300 kg square per meter. So some expert studies conduct a certain CW is very encouraging results. Next, though the performance of mortar made with CDW is less than that of a mortar made with sand, it performs better than mortar made with stone dust. Okay, so it is better than stone dust. So we can use this construction waste materials. So in CND waste have tremendous potential for recycling, producing building metals and building products. The CIDCO Yuva Building Center in Navi, Mumbai has successfully demonstrated production of building blocks, interlocking pavers using demolition waste. Now this brick masonry contains about the demolition. When it is demolished, the brick masonry contains 60% of brick and 40% of mortar and plaster. So 40% will be from the mortar and the plaster. This is the waste from the brick masonry. So this after crushing the mortar, this mortar and plaster, if you crush it, will have both aggregate and fine aggregate. So the fine aggregate here obtained from this mortar and plaster can be used as a surki pozzolana because it contains the lime reacted lime content is present in the mortar and plaster. So this fine is actually surki pozzolana, which has a property forming simulation component reacted by lime. So the crushed brick masonry waste that is below 4 mm is now used in the sand in various proportions, and 1:6 cement models prepared with mixture and tester. So now it is used, and now there is a test being done by for 1:6 cement mortar using the CND waste, and it is being tested for 5 centimeter cubes been casted and then tested. Then here it is seen that 50% replace of sand by DBM fine gives best results, especially for 90 days. So this will be due to the fact that lime released by cement reacts with surki for a long period. It may even show higher strength after 6 months because of the presence of the lime. Okay. Now coming over to the using of waste plastic as a super light weight aggregates in concrete. See, this is I've taken directly from the net. So this has been the blocks are made by using the lightweight plastic waste. So these are the blocks, concrete plastic blocks, which has been made it, and this is a house constructed by this, and this is the pellets made by the plastic aggregates. And this there is a test report also that the 3 days, 7 days, and 20 days compressive strength is being tested, and it is seen that the increase in percent of plastic pieces, the rate of reducing of compressive strength is reduced, but the reduction is very less where compared to the conventional concrete. But this is because due to the reduced bonding between the concrete materials. So it creates a lighter weight mix, standard weight concrete weights. This is a standard weight concrete weighs 145 pounds, whereas this plastic blocks weighs 90 pounds. So it's a lightweight mix, and simple conversion waste plastic through a process of shredding and extrusion and adding fillers such as gypsum creates a perfect super light weight. So by adding fillers like gypsum, it will improve the strength of the concrete. Converting readily available waste plastic into super lightweight aggregate should reduce carbon emission up to 66%. And even if you only replace our own use of expanded shale with plug aggregate, more than 70 tons of waste plastic would be diverted from entering landfills. So once grown on a local scale, plug has the potential to become the aggregate of a choice for the 10 billion tons of concrete produced annually worldwide, diverting hundreds of millions of tons of waste plastic from landfills or worse or anything. Next is the wood. This is the concrete made from wood. This is a plain wood. Still remains many advantages over more industrial building metals like concrete. So this is as the trees absorb carbon dioxide, the carbon dioxide energy can be lessened. And this is a ferroc. Ferroc is the material which is recycled material. This is steel dust used from the steel industries and made as a concrete. And this is the concrete block made of this ferroc. And this can be used as for the as a construction blocks. Then this is the ashcrete. Ashcrete is a material. This is the blocks which are made from fly ash So 97% of traditional composite concrete can be replaced by this fly ash, and it is lighter also. And timbercrete. Timbercrete is the as an interesting building metal made of sawdust and concrete mixed together. So this is made of sawdust and it will be lighter in weight. So since it is lighter than concrete, reduce transportation emissions. And thus, because it can be, the large amount of blocks can be carried at once. And the sawdust both reuses a waste product and replaces some of the energy intensive components of traditional concrete. Then comes the fiber reinforced concrete. Now, this fiber reinforced concrete is the one where we use it to improve the cracks in the concrete. So it's a composite metal, consists fibrous materials. This fiber can be of different shapes. It can be circular or flat, depending on the fiber what we use. And here the fiber the factors influences of fiber is on the aspect ratio. The aspect ratio is the ratio of its length to its diameter. So this the ratio between length to diameter, which ranges from 30 to 150, is used. And advantages of fiber reinforced concrete. There are many advantages in fiber reinforced concrete. And so here it improves impact strength and uses a high tensile strength and reduce cracking. The main purpose of using fiber is to reduce the cracking in the element. Then additional fiber concrete improves freeze and thaw resistance and material, and improve mix cohesion and improve comparability over long distances. Increase because the cohesion will be improved because of the fiber presence of the fiber which interlocks the elements, and increase resistance to plastic shrinkage and minimize steel reinforcement. So this fiber can be used as the steel reinforcement or as the cracks, and that's so the crack controls the crack width also, and reduces segregation and bleed. And then FRC toughness is about 10 to 40 times that of plain concrete. So when you compare the plain concrete, you can have more than that. So 10 to 40 times is higher than the plain concrete. The toughness is higher. So addition of fibers increases the fatigue strength also. So fiber increases shear capacity of reinforced concrete beams. Now, factors which affect the properties of fiber reinforced concrete, that is relative fiber matrix stiffness. So modulus of elasticity of matrix must be much lower than that of fiber for efficient stress transfer. So lower modulus of fiber such as nylon, propylene fiber are unlikely to give strength improvement, but they don't give you strength improvement, but they help in the absorption of large energy or crack arrestation. Next, impart greater degree of toughness to resistance the impact. So now, when you have high modulus fibers such as steel, glass, carbon fibers, they increase the strength and stiffness to the composite. So a good bond is essential for improving tensile strength of the composite. So next, volume of fibers. So this volume of fibers is a very important factor. We cannot use as much as the fibers we want. So there is a restriction for that. It varies from 1.5% up to 1.5% to 2.5%. It can be used. So the increase in volume of fibers up to 2.5 increase the tensile strength and toughness of the composite. But if it is more than 2.5%, there will be interlocking bonding problem in the element. So we cannot have more than 2.5%. Okay, next is aspect ratio. Aspect ratio, this length to diameter ratio. It has been reported that up to aspect of 75, increase in aspect ratio increase the ultimate concrete strength, but not more than 75. So more than 75 aspect ratio, the relative strength and toughness is reduced. Then orientation of fibers is also very important. So orienting the fibers. So either the fibers are randomly distributed or fibers are distributed parallel to the load and perpendicular to the load. Of all this, it is observed that when the fibers are aligned parallel to the applied load, the strength, the toughness, the tensile strength is being improved. Then workability and compaction of concrete. Thus, workability of compaction of concrete depends on the presence of steel fiber and also the type of steel fiber. Increase of steel fiber decrease the workability. So this feature adversely affects the concept of friction mix. So this depends on the present type of fibers. Another concept for workability is non-uniform distribution of the fibers, because the fibers will not be distributed uniformly in the concrete. So this also affects the workability and strength because some of the fibers are very light and which cannot be uniformly distributed in the concrete. Size of coarse aggregate. So this size of coarse aggregate also affects the performance of the concrete. So maximum size of course should be restricted to 10 mm to avoid an appreciable reduction in the strength of the composite. So higher the size of the composite affects the strength. Next, mixing. Mixing of fiber info needs careful because it has to be mixed properly. Otherwise, all fibers will be balled together at one point and it will not be distributed all over the concrete and will not get a good performance. So steel fiber contain excess or 2% of volume aspect ratio of more than 100 are difficult to mix. So it is very difficult to mix if you have more than 10% of fiber of steel fiber and aspect ratio is 100. So recommended aspect ratio is 75 and the steel fiber is 1.5 to 2.5% depending on the. So these are different fibers which I have just noted down. There are some more fibers also. This is steel fiber, polypropylene fiber, GFRS, asbestos, carbon fiber, organic fibers. So these are some of the figures which I got it. I just put it here. And this is the carbon fiber, and this is a plastic fiber, coil fiber, areca fiber, and this is organic fibers. This is another fiber, hemp fiber, which is being extracted from the hemp plants. Where the plants which produces hemp seeds, which are edible seeds. So other fibers are banana, sisal, and bamboo fiber. And here the fiber reinforced concrete. There is a study which is being done on this fiber reinforced concrete using the plastic, coir, and areca. These are the plastic fiber which we have extracted from the windmill waste for the production of wind blades. This is the coir fiber and this is the areca fiber. And these areca fibers, the plastic fibers, are treated and used here. So they are treated from the sodium hydroxide and then used here. So the treated fibers will be better than the untreated fibers. So this performance is being done here. I'll just go through quickly here. So workability here using this coir fiber. This is areca fiber and plastic fiber. So the different percentage of fibers. So the slump here, we have observed that conventional concrete is 74 and the workability with different fibers, it is seen, it is almost same as this. But with the increased amount of fiber, all fibers, different fibers shows the lesser slumps. So at 3% it is least 55, 54, whereas with 0% it is around 5.5 to 71, 72, 70. Then this is a compressive strength of the conventional concrete coir fiber. So this is the compressive strength is there's a marginal increase in the compressive strength because the fibers will not contribute much to the compressive strength as the coir fiber. However, the plastic fiber has shown a contribution to the compressive strength. So this is a coir, areca, and the plastic fiber. So the plastic fiber compared to the natural fibers here is shown a little higher in the compressive strength. But particularly when the percentage of fiber is at 1.5%, the compressive strength is increased with the presence of plastic fiber. And we have also worked for the hybrid fiber, that is coir and areca fibers, both put together. This also has performed similar to this, as the natural fibers behave similarly. And but however, the presence of the natural fiber, presence of the plastic fiber, it shows an increase in the compressive strength. So the combination of all the three, coir, areca, and plastic, shows the maximum increase in the compressive strength. Okay, and this is the percentage variation. I'm not going to show the increase. Show that here. So here we see that here. Let me just show you the compressive strength is all marginal. Percentage increase in compressive strength with 1.5% maximum. It was 6.1, 7.78. With plastic fiber, it's 9.39. That is why I told you, with the presence of plastic fiber, the compressive strength is higher compared to the coir and areca. So with plastic with coir or areca, it is 14.75. With the combination of all the three, it is showing 16.28. With tensile strength is higher because this contributes to the tensile strength fibers. So conventional is 13.55, whereas with the fibers, we see it is 26.83 for the hybrid fiber. And the only plastic fiber is 20.33. And coir and areca, it is 13.5 and 15.81. Flexural strength is also increasing with the presence of the fibers. And this is the percentage increase in modulus. The stress versus strain curve is being shown here. So the red curve shows you the conventional concrete, and the other fiber shows the other concrete with different fibers. So the increase in modulus of elasticity is presented here. Then flexural strength of, now this is for a slab also. We have tested a slab with the size of 600 by 600 by 60 mm using these fibers, and it is seen that the first crack load, particularly the fibers, contributes much for the first crack load rather than the ultimate load. So here for the first crack load, this is fibers, that is CT, and also here we have also worked for the fiber distributed on both on compression tension, that means all over the slab, and here the fibers distribute only on tension side. So this here only on tension, when the fibers are distributed only on tension side, definitely shows an increase in the strength, the flexural strength, compared to the fibers distributed all over. So we can concentrate on the fibers to be distributed only on the compression side. So this is for the coir, that is areca fiber, and this is with the plastic fiber. So plastic fiber, along with the plastic fiber, it is showing increase in the flexural strength, and even the deflection is also of the same pattern. So it is, so the presence of plastic fiber, the natural fibers are, so this is durability. So what durability, water absorption, when we check it, so with the fibers, the water absorption for a particular, for natural fibers, the water absorption is more compared to the conventional concrete, and plastic fiber shows the less water absorption. So the other fibers are of the similar behavior. So this is water permeability. Permeability in conventional concrete it is more, but with the fibers, the permeability are reducing, and in the presence of plastic fiber, it is reducing maximum. So magnesium sulfate. So with the immersion in the magnesium sulfate, all these fibers shows less percentage loss in the weight compared to the conventional, because they are not showing much reaction in the conventional. So this is weight loss for magnesium sulfate immersed for 2.5% and 5%. So this 2.5% and 5% both is being studied here. So this is the residual compressive strength immersion. This is sulfuric acid also shows a lesser weight loss in the strength. So the residual compressive strength in the concrete with different fibers shows increase in the compressive, there is residual compressive strength is more compared to the conventional concrete. Next is the hempcrete, which I showed you. This is the hempcrete, and this is the hempcrete plants, and this is a block which is being constructed with the hempcrete blocks. They are super light, which can also dramatically reduce the energy used to transport the blocks, and hemp itself is as a fast, this is a very fast growing plant, so which can be used as the fibers. So after drying it, next is a straw bale. This is a straw which is used as a bale, and then they just make it as a balls like this, pack it, and then replace the wall in this straw bales like this only. And after replacing this, then they over it, they put the mud mortar, or it can be sealed with the cement mortar. And this is how it looks after it is finished. And this is a rammed earth. Rammed earth is the one where I told you that directly the soil can be directly rammed into a formwork which is being casted, and then the wall looks like this. And this is the whole building which is being built by the rammed earth. So this is actually, I think this is being discussed in the last class by Professor Raghunath. So I'm just going first. So this is a formwork which is being used, and this is a soil which is placed in the formwork, and then you tamp this soil for every regular interval, and then you go on tamping it until it reaches the height of whatever you require. Then you remove the formwork. Then the wall remains like this. This is the soil. That it will be strong enough, and it is very environmental friendly element. And this is the building which is a church in which is built in 1850 to 1852 in South Carolina. And this is a building which is built recently in 2014 in California. So this is how it looks. Now, alternative to cement. Now let us just discuss a few materials. Not all I'm going to discuss here. So fly ash, GGBS, lime, SS cash, bagasse ash, wood ash, bamboo. Fly ash I'm not going to discuss because it's already been discussed. And I'm just going to discuss the other materials like rice cash. Now let me go with the rice. It is a 20%. It contains 20% amorphous silicas. It has to be burned carefully in a controlled temperature up to 700 degrees centigrade. But if the temperature is raised above 700 degrees centigrade, and if it is burnt at 800 degrees centigrade, the material turns into crystalline form and it cannot be used as a pozzolanic material. So it has to be burned in a controlled temperature. And then here, this burnt, it is burnt in a small pits like 50 by 50 by 50 centimeter. And we also call it as a basket burner. It can also be a higher one also. So this pit, you fill it with a rice husk and set fire at the top. You put the fire at the top and leave it for the burning. And after 1 day, everything will be burned and the ash will be left. So this ash can be used as the in the concrete.
Madam.
So this is a test.
Hello.
Done on the. Hello.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Ma'am,
we are already nearing 1:45.
1:45.
So they have a quiz from 2 to 3 and we are validated at 3:30 and they have asked a number of questions. Yeah, okay. So we have discussion forum later.
Okay, ನಂದು 5 ನಿಮಿಷ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡ್ಲಾ?
In 5 minutes you can.
In 10 minutes, 10 minutes ತಗೊಳ್ಳ?
5 minutes will be better, ma'am, because they have to go for quiz.
Yes. Then I'll finish it off. Okay. So this is the I'll just tell the materials and leave it. So this is the wood ash which has been replaced, and this is a combination of pozzolana. Combination pozzolana is the combination of rice husk, ash, and burnt clay put together. This will give you a very good strength. Instead of using only rice husk ash, if it is used with a burnt clay. And this is a blast furnace slag, which is a slag which can be used in the cement. This is bagash. Bagash is another material which is used from a sugarcane ash. So this also contains a good amount of silica, which can be used as a pozzolanic material. And this is a test which is done. And next is a bamboo material which can be used in the cement geopolymer reinforced. I have given you many experiments which has been done here, which you can go through. In the bamboo, we can use all the materials, the bamboo stem fibers, and then the ash, bamboo leaf ash can be used, and then bamboo fibers can be used as a reinforcement. So concrete bamboo strips, then bamboo fiber can be used as an additives. Bamboo leaf ash can also be used, and then bamboo stem ash also can be used. So this is the work which is being done. Stem ash. Then bamboo reinforced. Bamboo is reinforced in as a reinforcement in columns and beams, and we have got a very good result. But only thing is we have to treat it. Otherwise, without the treatment, the bamboo reinforcement or bamboo material cannot be used. And then this is another one which is we have done it. It's a bubble deck slab, we call it, where a slab is replaced by the balls here. This is a plastic balls. Lower you put a concrete, and then over it you put a balls here, and then over it again you put the concrete and then place it. So here the density of the concrete will reduce a lot, and with the conventional this slab here, this we see that the deflection also reduces here, and the ultimate load here for a 35 mm balls, we see that it is 29.3 sodium. So for a lower lightweight, for a temporary slabs, or wherever the slabs is not to do loads, then you can use that. So now designing sustainable concrete, this is the area where engineering skills, cost-effective and focused R&D and performance-based construction specifications can all help the development of mixes that can routinely offer real sustainable concrete, ensuring a long-term durable performance of structures with whole life cost is sustained. Then this is about the fresh concrete. So what care should be taken for the when we do it, sustainable concrete. So in the conclusion here, this for all this sustainable concrete here, the concrete sector has a significant role to play in the development of sustainable construction. But at the same time, the use of sustainable construction materials is potentially an attractive proposition to minimize any long-term risk to durability with concrete construction. Their use should be carefully evaluated and must not be based on strength only. In this respect, deformation properties should also be evaluated. So the use of pozzolanic materials and recycled materials with high porosity in structural concrete in certain exposure classes carry risks in the pursuit of sustainable construction. So when using secondary materials that contain heavy metals and pose potential leaching risk, the environmental aspect of sustainability must be carefully assessed. Then clearly further research is badly needed, given that the specs can be high, it must be ethically robust, and using standards which are well explained and understood. So this has to be taken care when we are using the sustainable construction. So actually, general practice, what we do here is for every application, we use the excellent material. Okay, but for a sustainable practice, we can also, for a very low grade concrete, for our temporary structures, we can use a poor quality material, and for a very high grade or a very important structures or where the loads are more, you can go with the excellent quality material. So this is the difference between a general practice and a sustainable practice. Okay, thank you.